I'm sure a lot of you guys remember the old ceremonial hunting tradition of eating the heart out of the first animal you kill. Meat from those organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. You can get those same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil. Find out more at heartandsoil.co. And remember, use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase. There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today.
Welcome to the Wired to Hunt podcast, your home for deer hunting news, stories, and strategies. And now, your host, Mark Kenyon.
Welcome to the Wired to Hunt podcast. I'm your host, Mark Kenyon, and this is episode number 46. Today in the show, we're diving deep into the topic of shed hunting. And joining us is Michael Turbyfill and Dan Perez of Whitetail Properties. All right, welcome to the Wired to Hunt podcast. And it's early March, and that means one thing for whitetail addicts like you and me: shed hunting. And as some of you know, this coming weekend, March 7th, is the Shed Rally, which is a pretty cool event that many of us are going to be participating in and that we'll talk about a little bit more here in a couple minutes. But that said, today I want to talk shed hunting tips and tactics to make sure that we're all ready to find plenty of antlers this weekend and in the weeks beyond. But Dan, I don't know about you, but I'm a little worried about my shed hunting plans coming up this weekend because we are just getting clobbered with snow. What's the deal over by you?
Huge announcement. Shed Rally's been canceled because I I said so. Man, we got about 8 inches of snow. Like out in my front yard and backyard, we got probably 5, which means that there's probably 8 to 10 in the timber still. It's not going to warm up fast enough for that snow to melt, and I think it's going to be until next week. Like next weekend's going to be prime shed hunting, except I'll be in a wedding in Chicago.
You get some horrible wedding plans. Like, isn't your brother getting married in November this coming year?
Yeah. Let's not talk about it, Mark. I want to stay positive for this episode.
Right, we'll try to stay positive. Right. But yeah, that's a bummer, man. I tell you what, I've been getting my shed hunting plans all screwed up too. I was supposed to go to Ohio last weekend, but they got a bunch of snow, so we pushed it to this weekend. And now today, there's no snow right there at my Ohio lease. Today they have a winter storm warning. They're supposed to get potentially 7 to 12 inches. And so me and my lease partner Josh and my buddy Corey and another friend Andy, we're all supposed to go down there this weekend. And like, this is the most excited I've been about a shed hunting trip because of what you know all the stuff that's going on down in my Ohio property. I thought that was all going to happen here in the next couple of days, and now I don't know. I'm just crossing all my fingers and toes and hoping that this storm kind of diverts and maybe stays rain or freezing sleet and stuff like that, which is a possibility because it seems to be right on the edge of the snow rain line. So I don't know, but I really want to go find some bone.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I tell you, someone, all these people on the news, they're saying, "Oh, global warming." I might start a fist fight with the next person who says that, because the last 2 winters have been extremely cold, lots of snow, and I'd almost believe somebody if they told me there's going to be another ice age.
Yeah, the way things have been going the last couple of years, I can't blame you for thinking that. It's been brutal.
Yeah,
I thought we got away with a nice, easy winter here up until February, And then
Right.
at least for me here in Michigan and Ohio, once February hit, it just got nasty.
Yeah.
So,
But I'm ready to put the boots on the ground, man. It's like the shed season for me kind of symbolizes a new beginning, kind of like get out, get out, start moving around again, start making those plans for the summer, think about where you're going to put your mineral stations and your shed hunting. And then from there, we know what happens from there, just we fall back in that circle again. So
yeah, it's definitely the thing that, after the hunting season ends, this is the next big thing that I'm pretty pumped about. And I'm just ready to get going. I really want to get out there. Ohio maybe this weekend, and then if Ohio does happen this weekend, I'm supposed to go to Iowa next weekend,
right,
into your neck of the woods. I know you're going to be busy, getting all fancied up and partying for the wedding, but I'll be out there walking, hopefully, if this all works out. But it's an exciting time of year, and I'm excited because our guests today are going to be talking to us all about this, which is going to be pretty great. We're going to be talking to Dan Perez and Michael Turbyfill from Whitetail Properties, and they're going to share with us some pretty great insight into shed hunting and the shed rally, since they're the guys who are putting that whole thing on. So, I don't know. Are you excited to chat with these guys?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. I think, as far as this whole season is concerned, I'm probably more excited that you're not going to be able to make it down and shed hunt with me this year.
Yeah?
I think I'll probably hold that over your head for the rest of your life.
Now, is that because I found the biggest shed, or because you had to rescue me out of icy river when I fell through the ice?
Well, I think what a real man would have done in a situation like that was, okay, I saved your life, kind of. I kind of saved your life.
I mean, you were there
I was
watching
there
after I dragged myself out of the hole in the ice. So you saved my life.
Right. I was ready to, this is going to sound weird, but I was ready to follow standard procedure.
You don't need to say this, Dan.
No, but you have to. I mean, if you fall through the ice, survival class says, hey, you got to get naked, you got to get in a sleeping bag, and you got to use your body temperature to warm up the person who fell through the ice. I was willing to do that for you, Mark, and you're like, no, man, I'm fine. And then you go ahead and find the biggest shed on the property, and instead of saying, Dan, thank you, here it is.
It was just weird. I felt, there was just water up to my ankles, and all of a sudden you're taking off your shirt. I'm like, what are you doing, Dan? It was just a little over aggressive.
It was just my socks were wet. I wasn't going to die of hypothermia.
No, actually, I was, as people who heard about this story last time, I was actually up to my neck. So that was pretty. It was pretty wild.
Yeah, it was nuts. You stuffed it out, and you walked the rest of that evening.
Yeah. It was a good thing we were walking. Like, and you go up and down hills and walking all over the place, because I definitely would have been not in good shape if we were just sitting somewhere. But because I was walking, it didn't bother me too much. But yeah, now we're gonna get Dan and Michael here on the line in just a quick second. But before we do that, I want to make a brief announcement about something we talked about last week, Dan.
Yes.
And that's the fact that the brand new, redesigned, rebranded WiredToHunt.com has launched. Have you seen it?
It looks spectacular. I do like it.
Thank you, sir. It's been
like the logo.
Thanks, man. It's as you've seen, very different, but it's been a big project trying to work on updating the site and the look and the brand to continue representing the next generation of deer hunters, which is what we're all about. So we had to make sure that the actual site and everything looked that part too. So I've been working on this since like October of last year. And it's finally reality. So I'm really excited about it. So if you haven't been to the website recently, definitely check out wiredtohunt.com. And you'll see it's a lot easier to navigate, a lot easier to find all the content that you want. It's also a big focus was taking, helping new people who are coming to the site, learn about what Wired Hunt is and how to connect with us. So hopefully all those things, work out the way we're hoping they will. And also, Dan, we've shipped out our first brand new Wired Hunt hat to a listener, and you'll be getting yours soon too. So we'll have to, once the shirts and hats are going to be available on the website for sale here in just a couple days. So when that happens, I'll make sure to let everyone know too.
Well, I hope that guy, whoever he sent it to, gets lost in the mail, so I get mine first.
Well, I don't know what he's going to think about that, but
Yeah, well, I really don't care what he thinks about it.
I know, Dan, you're focused on
Me.
just you.
Exactly.
Well, now that we've got that settled, I think we should start talking sheds. What about you?
Let's do it.
All right, let's get the guys on the line. All right, here with us on the line is Dan and Michael from Whitetail Properties. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you. Well, thanks for having us. Happy to be here, man.
Yeah, we are thrilled to have you guys on the line. And we were just talking before getting you guys on here that both me and Dan, or otherwise known as Dallas, we're both pretty excited to get out in the woods here pretty soon. But before we start talking shed hunting, for those in our listener group who maybe aren't familiar with Whitetail Properties, or the two of you, could you guys give us a little bit of background into who you are, what you do, and then maybe a little bit about Whitetail Properties? And maybe Dan, could you kick us off?
Yeah. I'm as you mentioned, Dan Perez. I'm the broker and the CEO of the real estate part of our business. Our business has two parts: production upstairs. That drives our real estate business. The production part of our business is the television show and many other levels of media. And the real estate, our business, it revolves around the whitetail deer. That is our niche. We presently have a footprint of 21 states. We're in all the big buck states, and we have presently, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, 138 agents, which are not typical agents. Each one of these guys is a land specialist. They think, they breathe, they eat, and they plant deer. That's what they do. They grow deer. And so that's, in a nutshell, that's who we are.
Awesome. And then, Michael, what's your role at Whitetail Properties?
So, guys, I handle marketing communications for Whitetail Properties, and obviously with what we consider a nationwide real estate company, we need a marketing arm that can help drive the bus, so to speak. And everything we do in our office supports our agents around the country and makes it easier on them to reach farmers, reach landowners, and connect them with buyers for hunting, ranch, and farm properties. And so specifically, I do anything from some of our printed marketing materials like print ads and brochures to I manage our social media accounts, which is kind of more of a segue into Shed Rally and kind of our event there and what we're doing on our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram accounts.
Yeah, so let's go right there with Shed Rally. We mentioned very briefly at the beginning that the Shed Rally is coming up this weekend, March 7th, I believe it is. I'm familiar with it, and Dallas is, but for those who maybe aren't familiar with Shed Rally, can you just tell us, what is the Shed Rally?
Well, I think to understand Shed Rally, you got to understand a little bit more about what we're about in this building. And my boss, Paul, who's not on the line with us, his philosophy is if it's not cool, we don't do it. And that's kind of how we approach marketing at Whitetail Properties. It's different for a real estate company. You don't think about real estate companies as being really, really cool. Well, we try to be, even if people would disagree. So what's really neat about that is we have so many talented people that work here, from video producers to graphic designers, and then obviously our land team around the country. Well, when you're a guy like me and you have so many talented people in a building around you, it's kind of fun because you can just dream about cool stuff to do that reaches people. And I was laying in bed one night, and I'm from the South, and we don't shed hunt a lot in the South, but I'm just blown away in the Midwest by the culture around deer hunting. And a place like Pittsfield, where we're headquartered, this town eats and drinks deer hunting, and it's all people think about. And it's a year-round thing out here in the Midwest, planting food plots, row crops, hinge cutting, all the things that Dan does on his farm. People eat it up out here, and I've just been blown away by the culture and the whole shed hunting thing. And I was laying in bed one night, and I was like, how can we connect the dots with shed hunting and this culture, and the fact that social media now gives us a way to connect everybody at a moment's notice. I mean, people are talking about the Kardashians and stuff online. Why are we not talking about our hunting and outdoor lifestyle online like that? It's way cooler than all this stuff that trends on Twitter every single day. You know what I'm saying?
So
to
true.
Me. And so I came to work and I said, guys, what do you guys think about this idea? And from day one, we called it Shed Rally. I don't know why. We like the name. it kind of stuck. And after last year's shed rally, we really feel like it resonated with people. And the whole concept is, we're a land company, and we want to show people as many ways as possible that there's a lot of ways to enjoy your land and the natural resources that the land provides. And obviously, social media lets us connect online, and truly America can shed hunt together using the Shed Rally hashtag. And so that was the whole concept. And for us, we wanted to reach people that may otherwise never ever interact with whitetail properties, whether it's women and kids that don't watch Dan host our show on the Sportsman channel, whether you're not seeing our print ads with the big deer, you've never talked to a land specialist. If you're a Facebook user or you're on Instagram a lot and you see people talking about Shed Rally, you may find us at Whitetail Properties. You may be able to see the things that we're doing through the Shed Rally. And again, there's a contest element to it for people that don't know. You can win prizes by participating, but really it's not about prizes. Shed Rally is about family, camaraderie, education, getting out walking on your land for exercise, being with your friends and family, and just giving everybody another reason to get outside and enjoy the whitetail lifestyle. It's March. Who's thinking about whitetails in March? So, we're really excited about Shed Rally. It went over really, really well last year. I can tell you that to date, for people that don't know, we've produced a video series this spring with different tips and tactics for shed hunting, but also things to do with your antlers. And to date this year, when we announced Shed Rally on February 2nd, the Shed Rally is coming up on Saturday on March 7th, and we announced it on February 2nd. And to date, this year's videos have been viewed over 300,000 times online. Wow. So it's really resonating with people. They're totally getting Shed Rally, what it's about. Everybody's proud of their outdoor lifestyle. And for us, it's just been a home run working with our partners and getting people talking about the Shed Rally and their lifestyle. So I'm sorry for being long-winded, but it gets me excited to talk about it.
No, that's awesome. I can see why you'd be excited. It's been a really cool idea. I'm so glad that you guys, had this idea and came out with it last year, because really there's not a whole lot of people or organizations that had the muscle to put something like this together and get it out there in front of people. And I think what's interesting about Shed Rally is it'd be a pretty lame idea if nobody participated with it, if 4 people did it. But since you guys can get the word out to a lot of people, it has the potential to be such a neat event to be a part of, and it was last year, and I'm sure it's going to be this year. And I think it's so cool because, like you said, you can have this camaraderie aspect to shed hunting that might not be the case if it's just you and a friend who are in southern Iowa by yourselves. Obviously that's a blast to go out there and shed hunt, but there's something to be said about being able to find that big shed and then show all your buddies, or now hundreds of your buddies that are buddies by virtual media. So that's pretty cool. I've got a lot of friends, myself included, who just love to ogle over big sheds, and Shed Rally is a really cool way to do that, because I can now, I know on Saturday I'm going to be on Instagram, and I'm going to be on Twitter, and I'm going to be on Facebook, and I'm going to be searching for the Shed Rally hashtag. And for those of you who aren't familiar with what a hashtag is, that's the number sign. So you take the number sign and then you type Shed Rally after it. If you're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you search for that within whatever that program search platform is, and it'll show anyone talking about that topic. A hashtag is a way to label essentially a conversation with a topic. So, I can go now and I can see everybody else who's out there participating in the Shed Rally, who's out there shed hunting. I can see their pictures of their antlers or whatever crazy things they're doing out there. I think that's pretty cool, and I'm excited to be able to share hopefully some pictures from my shed hunting trip this weekend too. So I'm curious, just before the two of you guys got in the line, I was talking to Dallas about my plans, and I'm supposed to be heading down to southern Ohio to go shed hunting this weekend on my lease down there, but there's potential there's going to be a big snowstorm. But assuming that the snow's not too bad, I'm going to be heading down there. For you guys, what are your shed hunting plans for the Shed Rally? Dan, do you have something planned?
Yeah, I've got the whole family and then some. We're going to gather out at my farm at, I think, 8 in the morning. We're going to start this thing. I think we'll actually be putting feet on the ground. It's important to me to spend some time kind of describing the rules of the shed hunt, because when you've got that many people spread across 865 acres, I don't want to lose any of them, And I want to do it in an organized way where we could comb it as effectively as possible with the number of people that we have. But I've got my whole family is going to be out there looking for sheds. The grandkids, which is a big thing, really big thing for me to have the grandkids out there, because when they're looking for them sheds, they're no longer thinking about their cell phones. These are little tiny kids with cell phones and all kinds of electronic hand gadgets to play on and all that. And it does my heart good when they're actually wandering through the woods looking for antlers. And what is so cool about that is that that little predator that was born in them comes out when they're in the woods. You know what I mean? If a lot of people don't even realize how much they love the outdoors until they're actually in the outdoors, if that makes sense to you. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of city people that never step foot and actually have some different views, perspectives on the savageness of hunting. However, that predator is in each one of them. They just have never experienced it. They never have been out there, because that's what we do. We hunt and we gather and we kill game and eat game, you know. But back to the antlers. The antlers, what is so neat is, and I've been hunting antlers my entire life, and it does not matter if it's a giant shed that's laying in the grass or a little bitty one. When I see it, when I'm within a few feet of it and I spot it, I actually get excited. You know, that kid it just jumps out again. It could be the smallest antler, and I'll feel just as good about finding it. Now, the difference might be is the larger antler, of course, that might give me some information that I may need in harvesting that animal later in the season or later in the year. But the small antler is a treasure. They're all treasures. It's a lot of fun. Family loves it. Kids love it. The plan, it's like this with us, and everybody has a different plan. I'm not sure if it was Michael that shared a video with me. Yeah, I think so. Where one of the guys had a bet, and he jumped into a frozen ice-cold pond because he lost the bet, and that was part of the shed rally for those guys. We won't be doing anything like that. What we will be doing is we're going to set out in the morning for the antlers, looking for antlers. We'll gather back about maybe 12 o'clock, and we'll have lunch, something hot, and we'll all gather around and look at the sheds that we have, compare them, talk about them, talk about what else we've seen out in the woods. It'll be a good time, and then we'll take back out. And then at the end of the day, we're going to have, although there's prizes on a much larger level that are being offered by Whitetail Property, on my farm we'll have some awards at the end of the day, and they'll be most antlers found will win an award. The largest antler will win an award, and the smallest antler will win an award. Smallest antler is important because I've seen guys come in with a single spike that was 2 inches. Now, it took much more to find that than it would a large antler, you know. Yeah. I scan a field, or I'll scan the woods, and in my mind, if it doesn't really jump out sometimes, well, then I didn't miss much. You know what I mean? But I like it when it seems like the little guys always find the little antlers. I don't know why that is, but maybe it's because they're closer to the ground and they see them real clearly. The kids always find the little ones, so it's cool. It'll be fun for everybody. We're really excited about it, looking forward to it.
Now, a lot of you guys are familiar with the old hunting tradition of eating, some organ, the heart or a chunk of liver, off the first animal you kill. I had that when I was a little kid, and it was a big deal. Organ meats were always prized by frontier people who knew the importance of getting a lot of different minerals and nutrients. And as often is the case, those guys were onto something, because organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. And you can get the same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil, made exclusively from regeneratively raised, grass-fed, and finished cattle. Heart and Soil's unique freeze-drying process means all those important nutrients are trapped in, ensuring you experience every one of the benefits of nature's superfood in a clean, convenient, taste-free capsule. Find out more at heartandsoil.co. And make sure to use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase. That's heartandsoil.co. Use the code MeatEater. There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today.
That's awesome. That sounds like that's going to be a lot of fun. I can't claim that me and my friends have got prizes lined up ourselves for our shed hunting plans on Saturday, but I do know that whoever finds the biggest antler will probably get a beer on me. So that we'll have that going at least down by us. Now
we don't need when Mark shed hunts, he doesn't need an excuse to fall through the ice.
Yeah, we were just talking about this last year. Me and Dallas were shed hunting together, and I actually fell through a frozen river. So,
Cool.
Yeah, so I won't be voluntarily participating in anything like that either. Now, that all said, I'm curious. You kind of mentioned a few of these things, Dan, but I kind of want to hear like your pitch, like your tight sales pitch on this for someone out there listening who's a serious deer hunter, but for whatever reason he just hasn't gotten to shed hunting. And we've kind of walked around the edges of this, but could you give me like your sales pitch to this guy? You know, why should he go shed hunting in like 30 seconds or a minute? What's your really quick sales pitch on that?
Yeah, you know, I'm just going to share why I go, and maybe that might encourage some people, because I love here's me, and if you're anything like me, you love everything that has to do with land. That's why I'm in the land business. I love the grass, I love the leaves, I love the water, I love the trees, I love every aspect of nature, and I just love to be out in it walking. And if I find an antler, that's great. That's the icing on the cake. But if I don't, I had a wonderful day, a wonderful time in God's country. And if I'm able to share that with friends and family, that's even huge for me. You know, that's even bigger than the icing on the cake. So that's a quick 30-second on why you should consider doing it.
That's awesome. That's a really good point. And I guess I'll add in a couple more. That's the most important stuff about getting out there, but also from a practical standpoint, and I'm sure you might be able to speak more to this too, Dan. But, you know, from my perspective, I think shed hunting does a lot for you from an actual strategy standpoint, because you can tell, okay, which bucks made it through to the new year. That's going to help you formulate a strategy that's going to, you know, eventually be applied during the hunting season. Where you find these sheds can help you learn something about some of these particular bucks too. So if you find the big 8 sheds deep in this cedar thicket, you can start realizing, hey, this might be one of his bedding areas. That's something you can apply in the future. So those are two things from a practical standpoint that I think everyone should keep in mind too when they go shed hunting. This isn't just about, you know, getting an antler that you can put on your, you know, on your mantelpiece. These are things that can actually be applied to developing a strategy, you know, months from now. So I know that I'm going to be keeping that in mind this weekend down in Ohio, because I really want to know a couple of these bucks if they survived. And I actually had a situation where I hit a deer last year on this property, wasn't able to recover him, and I'm very hopeful that I'll find his sheds and be able to confirm if he's alive. But those are just a few of the reasons, you know, in addition to all the other great aspects of shed hunting that I think people should keep in mind. So,
absolutely.
So what do you think, you know, how many sheds do you think you've found, Dan? You mentioned you've been hunting antlers your whole life. Hey, do you keep track of that?
No, I don't. I couldn't tell you how much I've found in my life, but I did have one year that I found 142 antlers.
Wow.
I know that was a big year for me, and it was partly two things. It was at that time I was walking a lot of property, selling land as well, and every moment that I had that I could be in the woods looking for antlers, I was doing that as well. So I had that going for me. It's pretty cool when your job revolves around being in the outdoors, you know. So I have some opportunities a lot of people do not have as far as finding antlers. But that was a big year. That was a big year. If you know, I have no idea how many I've found in my life, because I've been looking for them my whole life. It just I found them everywhere. And I'm originally from Florida, and like here in the Midwest, antlers are eaten very quickly. In the South and in the Midwest, well, I say the Midwest, there's parts of the Midwest that they don't. Maybe there's more snow in Minnesota, for example, and the squirrels can't get to the antlers as quickly, so they last longer. But in the South, there's no snow, and there's a lot of rodents and a lot of squirrels. So they're eaten very quickly. So you got to get out there you got to get out right away. We're here, like we're waiting till this weekend, March 7th, I guess it'll be, and we're going to get out. In some places, they're eaten within a week of when they drop off a deer's head. Wow. I wish I could tell you, 6,025,000 antlers. I don't have any idea.
That's 140, however many in a year. That's pretty incredible. I cannot claim
142 one year.
I cannot claim anything close to that. My best is I think 12. So I've got a ways to go. But what about you, Dallas? What's the most you've ever found?
I think the most I've ever found in 1 year was I was also unemployed that year, so I had a lot of spare time, and it just so happened to fall during late February and March that I was unemployed. So I think I found close to 30 antlers.
Nice. That's not a bad year at all for the average guy.
Yep.
So you touched on this, Dan, a second ago, about the timing of shed hunting and how it's important to get out there before antlers start getting chewed on by squirrels and whatnot. But then there's also issues like snow that might keep you from going out there. What are your thoughts on the timing of shed hunting? When do you think is the best time to shed hunt, and or what are the considerations that we should keep in mind when choosing when to shed hunt?
Yeah, that's a good question. Timing is really, really important for a couple of reasons. One is you don't want to start so soon that you push these animals onto your neighbors where they drop their antlers next door rather than on the property that you're able to access, whether it's a lease or your own property. And so you've got to be careful there. So what I try to do is take either my Hunt V or a gator and work the fields. In other words, I try not to intrude into the timber until it's pretty much till I'm pretty close to when most of the deer have dropped their antlers. It's hard to put a date on when all of them have dropped their antlers because there's animals right now that, believe it or not, are still trying to breed. It's crazy. I've seen fields before. I've looked across food plots before, and I've seen animals where their antlers are developing. In other words, they're velvet, and you could see the big bulbs at the end. And at the same time, there was a deer on that field that had hard antlers, and there were deer on that field with drop antlers. And a reference of that is you'll see fawns sometimes with spots all different times of the year because it's not the same all the time. The does do not all come into estrus at the same time, and the bucks do not all drop their antlers at the same time. But anyway, concerning the timing, I work the edges, the fields and stuff, and again because I don't want to push them out. So when it's time, when the majority of the deer have dropped their antlers, then I'll enter the timber as well. This way I won't push them out by working the fields, but now I'm looking for them in their antlers in their bedding areas and a lot of other places. I look in bedding areas, and I'll tell you, the best way that I look at it is if I'm a deer and I'm out all night, okay, and now the sun is starting to come out. And I catch those first warm rays that are coming from the south and from the east. Well, I'm on a bed somewhere where I'm nice and comfortable, and that sun hits me because it's been cold all night. It's winter. So two places that I key on. I like to key on edge. And edge is very dominant here because of the agriculture. Edge. That is on the south and the southeast side of the edge. I look for that quite a bit. I slopes, the side of hogbacks or hills or gullies, the sides where it does two things. You've got the the south-facing slope, if it's not heavily timbered, you'll get plenty of sun, and it's warm and it's comfortable, and that's where they bed. And that the backside of that slope it breaks the wind. It's important for them not to have that north wind on them. So it serves as two purposes. That's when I go into the timber. When I'm in the field first, I'm looking at the southeast edges quite a bit. I don't hardly look at the shade side of stuff very much, although I will when I'm driving around, but most of the antlers I find will be where the deer finally bedded after a long night, and they want to bed somewhere warm. If that makes sense to you guys. So the south-facing slopes and the south-facing edge is a big deal for me. And the other thing to go along with, I think you mentioned something about about dry bedding. I'm not sure the context of what you said, but dry bedding is really important also, because when the snow thaws, everything's wet. And you would think that the oak leaves would be good, but the oak leaves get pretty muddy out in the timber. I like cedar thickets quite a bit, and maybe that's what you mentioned. Maybe it was cedars. I'm not sure. Cedars, pines, anything that provides really dry bedding. A lot of people plant the warm season grasses on their properties. When those grasses fall over, they provide really dry bedding as well. Those deer, it's cold, and they don't really like to lay in a mud puddle. So I key on those areas. What I try to do is knock out the areas that are the hottest spots first. That's where I'm going first. Of course, the hottest areas, and it changes with time, is the post-season food sources, the best post-season food sources. Because, there's food sources that were hot, really hot during hunting season, that at the post of the season, they're cold. Maybe that was clover, for example. It turns dormant. As soon as it freezes, it's dormant. So some of the hotter food sources, I obviously look for antlers in those food sources and around those food sources. So now I could venture into the timber around those really hot food sources. That's probably my number one. And on this particular topic of timing, I don't know if you want me to get into some other stuff, but I got some stuff that people don't even think of when hunting antlers, and I could save it if it's the wrong timing.
Well, I hate to have a cliffhanger here. Now I'm really intrigued.
Go for it.
Let's hear that now, and then I've got a million other questions now that I'm thinking of as you're touching on some of these things. But let's hear the not so commonly thought of antler tips.
I've found probably more antlers doing this than, especially farms where not too many people mess around the ponds. There's years where it's not so wet, and there's not so much snow like there is right now. So water, even in the winter, is not very available. And some of the southern regions also, it's never available. And if you have a year of drought, ponds, there's antlers laying in ponds. If those ponds have never been dry, they've never gone dry, and no one's ever done this, you may have a wealth of antlers in your pond. And what I do is I take a long pole, very long pole, depending on the size of the pond, with a rake head on the end of it, and drag. In other words, I reach as far as I can reach into the pond, and then I drag back towards the shore. And when you feel on the end of that rake, you feel a little bink, you know you have an antler on the other end. And I drag them out. And it's kind of cool because, like I bought a new farm. Let's see, it's been 3 seasons now. And the first thing I did was drag the ponds. And I didn't find that many. These ponds, some of them dried up, but I found 15 antlers by dragging ponds.
Wow.
And the cool thing about it, there's nothing eating those antlers. There's nothing eating them, and the water actually preserves them. They'll be a different color. There'll be a little shade of a brownish, like not a dark brown, but kind of a medium brown color from being underwater if they've been there for a long time. But the antler's still perfectly intact. Nothing. They don't. Unlike an antler that's been laying out, like here and in the South, squirrels eat antlers. Mice eat antlers. They eat them very quickly. In the West, where they don't have so many squirrels, in some cases no squirrels, an antler may lay there for years without being touched. But that antler it'll dry out. It'll kind of bleach out, and and when you pick it up, it won't weigh anything. But the ones that you pull out of the ponds, they'll be perfect. You know, I mean, they still have the same amount of marrow. They're solid. You know, so
Wow.
that's something that I know a lot of people have not done. I mean, I'm probably the only one crazy enough to try it.
Yeah,
you know?
you take the cake for the craziest, most unique shed hunting tip I've ever heard. That's awesome.
Yeah. Now, probably now, when we acquire a farm, I won't be able to find antlers because I let it out of the bag.
Yep.
You know, because you guys have so many listeners.
They're definitely good. At least I'll be trying it.
You know, and I'll mention this too as well. Agricultural areas that have been tiled, and you know, they're like little levees across your, you know, to help your drainage on the fields, and those little levees provide windbreaks, and bucks, does as well. They'll snug right up to them if they, in other words, if that serves as a windbreak on a west or northerly wind. So as long as they're still on the south side of that windbreak, it's a really hot spot as well. Because and the reason I say that, if I was disciplined enough and had the time to go up and down each stubble corn row, I would find more antlers probably. But what I try to do is hit the hottest spots as fast as I can. And so if it's an open field, I key on those tiled areas that serve as a windbreak. The other thing that's hot is our fences. Those internal fences that go through the woods, and especially the ones that you see the top strand is beat down from so many deer that jump it and jump it and jump it and jump it. That's a prime place for them to drop antlers. I found several over the years at fence crossings as well.
Yeah, I know Dallas and I went shed hunting, like I mentioned, together last year, and he found one at a fence crossing. Am I right, Dallas? I think you did.
Yep, right in that pinch point.
Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense, right? A buck jumps over the fence, and his antlers are about to go, and he has that hard impact on the other side. Pop, there they go. So
yeah.
Probably apply. I mean,
Absolutely.
it does apply to ditches and creeks and different crossings like that too. I've found that to be the case. So that's awesome. Are there any other bizarre shed hunting tips that you've got, Dan?
Yeah, no, not too bizarre. I've never used. A lot of guys talk about these cages that they put. They're made to catch antlers when the bucks bend into to eat corn or something. They get them in those fences. Forgot what they call them. I'm not sure, but I've never used them because I'm a little. It bothers me a little bit that they may become tangled to the point where they can't get out. I don't know if they're. In other words, if the antler's not ready to break, you know.
Yeah.
But I've never used that, and you know, I don't really have any. I'm thinking about it now, and that's probably the only really bizarre. The one thing I have done, and that is bizarre, but it has not served. It has not served me really well. I found one antler doing this is in years when the creeks are frozen or whatever the water source is that's frozen and the snow is gone. In other words, the pond is still frozen, but there's not a lot of places to drink anywhere, and there's just not a lot of there's not an abundance of water. I have broken holes into creeks at crossings where it just slows them down, makes them hang around a little longer, makes them go to it. And over the years, I found one or two antlers doing this, but I still believe in it. You know, it's just got to be the right conditions. Where the reason the conditions are so important is because normally if your ponds are frozen, there's access to moisture everywhere. But there are some years that the ponds are still frozen and everything else is kind of drying up. You know, it's sunny out, and when you can bust that pond and as soon as they know, it's crazy. Like the way the deer are is so neat because you could bust a hole in that pond, and in 3 days there's 1 million tracks there. How they figure it out so fast is amazing, you know. But the key is to bust the ice in those places where there is high traffic.
Wow, makes sense. Makes a lot of sense, really. Now I know Dallas, I know you had a question related to some different things you can do on your own property, different than, water sources, but did you have a question for Dan related to things like that?
Yeah, I don't own my own property, so there are fields, but they're not technically food plots. I mean, they don't keep the corn in or the beans in for the deer. They're ag fields. But what I do is I spend probably around $300 a year dumping a giant pile of corn, then kind of spread it out in a particular area, put trail camera over top of it in order to, maybe hold deer in that area. Is that something that you would recommend to somebody? Is that something that that you do yourself per se to kind of concentrate deer?
Yeah, I have done that. The one thing that I caution is make sure that it's okay with the state. Like here in Illinois, we can't dump any corn. We can't even put a mineral block or salt out there. Nothing that would cause deer to congregate in an area where they might share feces, saliva, fluids, body fluids, or anything else because of the chronic waste disease. So we can't do it. In Wisconsin's another state you can't do it, and there may be other states, but I would caution that. But yeah, the key is anywhere that those deer, during the period that they're going to drop antlers, spend the greatest amount of time, obviously increases the chances of you finding an antler there.
So, tying into that then, let's say, right, we just talked about Dan's case, he doesn't own the property, so the best he can do is he can put some supplemental feed out or some corn. Now, what if you do own a property? What would you recommend someone do if they own property or they have access to property that they're allowed to manipulate from a habitat standpoint? What would you do to make the best possible property for shed hunting?
Yeah, late season crops. If you still, in other words, if you plant enough turnips, radishes, those after the second freeze, they turn into a sugary syrup and they'll last straight into the winter. They're still very relevant right now. So that would be a great food source. Winter wheat and winter rye are both excellent for the late season. Those deer, in fact, I have a winter wheat and rye field that's under the snow, and I visited that field the other day to pull some SD cards from my cameras, and they just about pawed 50% of that field out to get to the winter wheat and winter rye. So when we go to the shed rally, what I'm going to do is put some people on those food sources and around those food sources, because what will happen is those animals will bed as closely to that food source as possible. They're burning up a lot of calories trying to look for food. So as soon as they find food, they're going to bed right on top of it. Late season beans. If you've got beans that you left standing, if you're fortunate enough that you could plant. Depends a lot, of course, on the deer population. Like here, I don't have an excess of deer, but it's a lot. I've got in my area probably 60, 70 deer per square mile, which is pretty much. And where I used to be in an area that was over 100 deer per square mile. So what I'm getting at, in some places you could get away with 5 acres of beans. In some places you may need to have 50 acres of beans. But if you're fortunate enough to have standing beans. Right now in February and March, holy cow! You will have every deer in the county in there till the beans are gone. And that's where the antlers will be, because they will literally eat the beans and then lay in the beans, and then they'll get up and they'll eat the beans and they'll lay in the beans. They won't venture too far.
Yeah, we've got a standing bean field on a neighboring property near one of my places in Ohio that I'm really excited to shed hunt around because, like you said, that really pulls them in. Now,
oh yeah, guys. Hey guys, if you don't mind me chiming in on the inverse of Dan's point there,
yeah.
I was turkey hunting last year in Florida on probably around March 18th, and I was in your stereotypical Florida planted pines area. I walked an old planted pine logging road. I ended up killing a turkey in about a 1 acre food plot that was probably the first food plot on the entire property to green up in the spring, and found 3 shed antlers within sight of the turkey when I ended up harvesting them in the food plot. So in the South, the inverse may be true. Is is where you would want to plant food sources that in the Midwest that are prime in winter, and once everything gets cold in the South, you may find more sheds around your first fields to green up in the spring. I just wanted to make that point.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Absolutely.
Really interesting. Yeah. I've found one shed while turkey hunting too. That seems to be a time that if you're not actually out there looking for sheds, that does seem to be a good time to accidentally find them. As they're not quite chewed up by that point sometimes too.
Now, a lot of you guys are familiar with the old hunting tradition of eating, some organ, the heart or a chunk of liver off the first animal you kill. I had that when I was a little kid, and it was a big deal. Organ meats were always prized by frontier people who knew the importance of getting a lot of different minerals and nutrients. And as often is the case, those guys were onto something, because organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. And you can get the same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil, made exclusively from regeneratively raised, grass-fed, and finished cattle. Heart and Soil's unique freeze-drying process means all those important nutrients are trapped in, ensuring you experience every one of the benefits of nature's superfood in a clean, convenient, taste-free capsule. Find out more at heartandsoil.co. And make sure to use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase. That's heartandsoil.co. Use the code MeatEater. There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store, or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today.
For a guy that doesn't own property again and can't plant food plots, you've touched on some of the different types of ag that are, highly productive shed hunting spots. But other than crop fields, is there any natural food sources that you guys have seen to be, good spots to check for sheds?
Yeah, it depends on where you are. We have had years where we have an abundance of acorns, and that's great if you could get out there in the oaks, and because that's where the deer would be. But the deer, what's kind of cool, if you're the guy with the food, is that if there is food in the area, and that area could be 4 miles in the winter, you may lose your deer. In other words, if you're leasing a piece of property, you only have access to this one piece of property, and 2 miles down the road, someone left standing corn, or someone has a winter wheat field. That you may lose that population during that period. In other words, they'll suck it right off your property. And I give you an example of that was pretty neat. I had a farm on Dutch Creek, and I really didn't have that year. I didn't have any late season food. I didn't have anything to carry them into the winter. But I don't know. I think probably 4 miles down the road off of Highway 96, this guy left, a bunch of corn standing. And part of it was standing and part of it he bush hogged. So there was an abundance of corn on the ground and there's abundance of corn standing. And people would slow down and just about stop because there were so many deer in that field. So I remember 4 nights in a row I went down there to glass the deer in that field because there were so many deer that they could not have come from the immediate area. And there was 2 deer. 2 bucks. This was about the 3rd week of February. 2 bucks that were from my property that live on me 4 miles away in there eating corn. So they literally pulled everything off of everybody by leaving that standing corn. I don't know why they left it. Maybe it was some insurance deal. I don't know. But that's something that you face if you don't have food. If you don't have a food source. You may lose those deer during the late season, during the postseason.
I'll tell you something that I learned from Dan when I started at Whitetail Properties was we see so many deer next to the highways at the end of at this time of year, and it's fascinating to learn from a guy like Dan who's lived out here in the Pike County Big Buck area of Illinois for 25 years is those deer, the first thing they're going to eat once crops are harvested are the most secluded fields. They're going to stay as secluded as possible, and then when their bellies drive them towards the roads, because that's all the food that's left, that's when you're going to start seeing deer. Is this time of year when there's the least amount of food possible. They have to come out and feed in those bigger crop fields that might be right next to a highway or an interstate. And so naturally, that's where deer are spending a lot of time this time of year. You may not have to find secluded fields to find shed antlers. It may be the field that's right off the highway.
It's an interesting point. Makes sense, though.
Perfect sense. Okay, so now that we've talked about where to find these antlers, Dan, is there any tips to finding the antlers that you'd like to maybe go over with us?
Yeah, I guess I tell you what works for me when one of my main pieces of equipment that I have with me is a good pair of binoculars. Otherwise, you spend 50% of your time walking up to branches and twigs that are in the ground poking up looking like, or corn stalks that look like antlers. So that'll save you a lot of time with the binos. I tell you, I think for every 10 that I think is an antler, one of them is maybe an antler. You know what I mean? There's a lot of stuff that looks like antlers, and binos will help you a lot. But here's another something that works for me. Maybe it's my eyes, and it may not work for the next person, but I take a pair of shooting glasses. You know those amber shooting glasses? I take a pair of amber shooting glasses. When I'm walking around, whether it's cloudy or even bright, the antlers just pop a lot more for me. I could see them so much better with those a pair of shooting glasses. Those are two tips that I would, and of course, I take. A lot of people take a backpack, and in the backpack I stock it with a lot of stuff, including food, first aid, toiletries, about all kinds of stuff to last the day. And there's usually not enough room in that pack for my antlers, so I take about 10 feet of it's about 10-15 feet of rope, wad it up, put it in my pack, and as the day goes on, and my pack is full of antlers, I will tie those antlers. I tie an antler, and then I go a few inches and tie the next antler, go a few inches, tie the next antler, and pretty soon I'm wearing antlers all over me, but I'm able to carry them and keep going, you know?
That's a great idea. I hope I have the issue of finding enough antlers that I need to tie them to my backpack this year. If I do, I'll be prepared.
Yeah, or you could just, find one and make a necklace out of it.
That might be more likely for the way my shedding plans have gone recently. So you mentioned binoculars, a backpack, rope. Any other gear or items that you would say that a shed hunter should bring with them?
Yeah, no, nothing comes to mind other than those amber glasses. They that shade of amber makes them pop. That's just me, maybe. But that's all that comes to mind. I'm probably forgetting stuff, but those are the essentials to me.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like the glasses idea. I've tried sunglasses, just regular sunglasses, like polarized glasses, and I feel like that helps me a little bit too. But it makes a lot of sense. Something you touched on briefly, but I'll just emphasize it again. Make sure you bring extra toilet paper just in case, everyone, because you don't want a shed hunting trip shortened because of nature calling. So
or walk out of the timber with just one sleeve on your t-shirt.
You never want to have shed rally end that way. So speaking of something that we've kind of mentioned here briefly, the conditions right now in many states are still snowy. Where I'm supposed to be going this weekend, they're predicting possibly 7 to 12 inches of snow tonight. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But do you have any advice for, hey, if you're out there, there is still snow, maybe it's 2 inches, 5 inches, any advice for someone who wants to get out shed hunting, but there's still snow?
Go home. No, I'm just kidding. If I can't see at least grass, just the stubble brown grass, I don't go. It's just too difficult. I get whiteout. Like if you look at that snow long enough, and then you look away, all you see is white dots. It's tough for me to find them in the snow. So I don't know that I have advice, and I would put off that trip if there's 3 inches on the ground, just because I want to be as productive as possible when I comb that area.
Yeah, it definitely does make things a lot more difficult.
Oh man,
it's brutal.
Yeah, a lot of the antlers I find from 100 yards away. And you lose that when there's snow on the ground. If I spend as much time glassing as I do walking.
Yeah, for whatever it's worth, for the guy or girl, if let's say your only time you can go shed hunting is this weekend or whenever it would be, and you do have snow, but you still want to get out there, I would say there is a little bit of a silver lining. And if it's only your time, go out there and give it your best. And 2 things that seem to help me is that when there is snow, right, you can very, very clearly see where the deer have been traveling, where they've been bedding, and where they've been eating. So it's obvious. You see a bed in the snow, obviously that's where a deer has been bedded. So it is a little bit easier to go right to a bed. And so what I'll do if I'm stuck out there in the snow, I'll just check the beds, literally go to each individual bed and check every one of those. And lots of times that's melted down. And so if there is by chance, a shed there and that's melted down the bed, you've got a chance to find those. And then lots of times, on a property where there's, 6 or 7 or 8 inches of snow, those deer will follow, all the deer in that area will follow a single trail to make it easier for them to go back and forth between spots. And so I have found, these highways essentially that every deer is taken. Sometimes you can find an antler on those that you can still see because the trail's beaten down so far that the antler's lying right there down the trail.
That's good stuff, Mark.
Yeah.
I'll mention this is if that's the case, and there's 3 inches, 4 inches, whatever it is of snow, where there is not snow, there's not snow there because of 2 reasons. Of course, like you mentioned, trails or beds, or because it receives a good dose of sun throughout the day. And if that's the case, then you'll find those south-facing slopes very quickly. They won't be blocked by trees. You'll find the best places very quickly. So that would be, you'll miss a lot of stuff, no question. But if, like you say, if that's the only time you could go, it may save you a lot of time, and you still would find a fair amount of antlers.
Yeah, and another thing I just thought of is, it will help you in future years, right? If you can identify those areas that, like you said, are getting the warmest and melting out the fastest, or those again beds or bedding areas, feeding areas. Once you notice those spots now in the sun or in the snow, in future years or later in the year when you get that snow melted out, now you know exactly where to head back to and check those hot spots first, like you mentioned.
Absolutely. That's one reason. That's another thing, just to your point, that I love about shed hunting is while I'm shed hunting, I almost spend as much time looking up at trees about where I'm going to put a tree stand this next year, and looking at apparent funnel situations that I didn't quite see during the season. There's a lot of things you learn as you go through the woods, and that's one of them. Like you say, you'll learn a lot about where the deer probably do spend the greatest amount of time during the day.
So we've talked about, where we look, how to find them. Now, the next question is, what alterations maybe? I know you talked a little bit about hinge cutting, but what improvements can we make to the property to hold the deer there while they're dropping their antlers?
Yeah, that's cool that you just bounced back to hinge cutting, because we just did a lot of hinge cutting this past week, and 2 things that I done to hold deer. Well, one was to kill deer, and one was to hold deer, and we basically built a giant bedding area by hinging trees over each other, and kind of like a carport, like a garage without the sides. These deer are able to get out of the weather and get up underneath all these trees. And what happens is, when you hinge cut, of course, is that those trees that normally block the sunlight because they're up in the air, now they're hinged to the ground. So there's more sunlight on the actual forest floor. So that second story of brush comes up. That second story of briars and vines and everything. It's just thick and nasty, but optimum bedding. So when you increase the amount of land surface that provides for holding deer, you can hold obviously more deer. So hinge cutting is awesome for the bedding areas, but it's also great. There's a place that I called the Mousetrap this last season, and I hinge cut behind my stand from the back of my tree all the way to the bluff. In other words, so that they'd have to fly to get around behind me because the bluff drops 100 feet. And so what I learned during the season was that I didn't do as good a job as I thought. There was a few holes that they were still able to get through. The majority of the deer passed in front of me, but there was still a few places behind me that they went through. So I hinged a few more trees and stuffed some of the holes with some trees that I cut from somewhere else, So I tightened up those spots. But I think the biggest thing to hold deer is simply provide more bedding, create more, also feathering. When you feather the edges, what's cool is I drop those trees back into the timber, and it creates more sunlight, allows more sunlight, so that those blackberries grow up and those raspberry vines grow up, and it's just a tangled mess of growth, but it provides optimum habitat for holding deer. So the park-like look is great, and be honest with you, we sell a lot of land that people, they just love the way it looks like a park because it's wide open and you see the big trees and all. There's got to be a certain amount of an ambiance of pretty sometimes, but the best habitat for holding the deer sometimes is the nastiest. The vines and the treetops laying down on top of one another, and that's all really good stuff. That's another thing I did not mention is if you're walking through the woods, and there is a tree that's laying down. That's a good place to look, is around that tree that's laying down, because it's a natural place for the deer to snug up on a cold day underneath all the limbs that are naturally laying there. But yes, to me that's the best thing you could do this time of year, because that and frost seed. I frost seed my food plots, and that's a great thing to do this time of year. And hinge cut. Those are, to me, the two best things you could do on your property to ensure that you hold the greatest number of deer.
So you talked about feathering some of your edges, which for people who aren't familiar, that's creating essentially a transition cover from like a field towards your timber, and like you mentioned, it gets thick and nasty. And
yes,
I found the same thing to be the case, right? Where lots of times where you're looking for those sheds are in those bedding areas that are nasty with vines and thorns and everything like that. And it made me think about all the times I get just tore up with prickers. I'm always just absolutely carved up after shed hunting. And because of that, I wear specific clothing items when I go shed hunting to try to protect against that. And it made me wonder, is there anything special that you wear, Dan, when you go out shed hunting? Do you have like a well thought through system for what to wear when you go out looking for antlers?
I don't, Mark. I know what the best thing to wear, and that's the what do you call that material? Like the upland game bird hunters use.
Like the canvas.
Like it's kind of like a canvas, almost like a polyester canvas that the cockleburs and the hitchhikers and all that stuff doesn't stick to. That would be smart. But I do wear my Carhartts. I wear my Carhartt jacket and Carhartt pants, and those vines do not tear me up. Some things stick to it, but they don't tear my. In other words, I could just rip through it and not worry about a thorn penetrating my clothing. Carhartt makes some tough stuff, and of course, if I'm going through that stuff, I'm wearing gloves. I always have either gloves on or in my pocket. I take them on and off as the day progresses. Same thing, like if I'm walking a lot this weekend, it's going to probably be a little bit cold. I walk enough, I get hot. That means my sweater hat comes off. It goes in my pocket. I walk some more. I put it back on. Same with my gloves. They're always coming off and on. But when I go through those viney areas that a lot of stuff will tear you up, I have the gloves on for sure.
Yeah, that's smart. I've gone on way too many shed hunting trips without gloves and just ended up looking like been scratched by a cat all up and down my hands.
Yeah, I could tell you stories, man. I've had my ear almost ripped off by you go pushing through, and all of a sudden one of them hooked vines with a hooked type of a thorn grabs the inside of your ear and jerks you in a circle,
That's no fun.
No.
That's
I've done it many times.
That's another good reason to wear some kind of glasses, whether it be the ones you wear or sunglasses or something, because I've had a couple times where I almost got popped in the eyeball with a thorn with a branch coming back. That's another good reason to wear some kind of eyewear.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned you wear the Carhartts, and that's something I found works really well too for me. That I wear some Carhartt pants out there, and that helps a lot. And Dallas, sorry, you wear Arborwear pants? Is that right?
Yeah, I wear a brand of pants called Arborwear. It's actually made for arborists. Climbing in the trees. Really heavy duty material. That I would say it's similar to a Carhartt type of pants, but it's designed to get beat up. So.
Yeah. I think that's smart. I've made the mistake of sometimes forgetting that and just wearing regular thin jeans, and I'll just get, again, lots and lots of thorns carved up on my thighs and everything. And that can take your excitement out of a day shed hunting really quickly. So we've got just a couple really quick sort of random questions, and then we'll let you guys go because I appreciate the time, and we're coming up here on that time limit. So if you could pick anywhere to hunt, regardless of property, regardless of where you own property, if there was one state that you would choose to spend your time shed hunting, Dan, where would that be?
Well, that's a two-sided question. I mean, where I wanted to find, where I thought I'd find the most sheds would probably be Kansas. The reason I say that is they do have a very good population of deer, and they do not have the rodents that eat the antlers so quickly. An antler could lay out there for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. You know what I mean? So in that regard, I would say Kansas. But me, that's a general answer. Kansas, a good property in Kansas, you probably find more antlers than about anywhere else. But if you know the property like I do in my property, if you have a place like that, it probably doesn't matter much where it is. Like for me, obviously, it'd be Illinois because I have a really good idea of what's there, and it would mean the most to me. To your point earlier, that the antlers I find will mean a lot to me. One, I could journal and I could monitor an animal on my property. All the animals that live on my property, I want to know who they are and what they do year in, year out, and also it'll let me know those that survived, especially if I'm hunting a big one. And so I would say Illinois for me.
Okay, awesome.
That was a long answer to what should have been a short answer.
No, we like long-winded answers. It keeps things interesting. Much better than the guy that says Kansas. Yeah, and that's it. Kansas. So we love it. How about you, Dallas? Do you have a final question for Michael or Dan before we wrap things up?
Well, I think I'll direct my question to Michael in regards to the shed rally, and I know it's the creation of it is kind of getting more people involved with the outdoors. I have a daughter, and she's right now she's 2, and she may be a little bit young to take on these some of these shed rally events for a longer day. What would you want to share with somebody who is trying to get their kid? Is there anything that like a parent or somebody should do to maybe show some interest in that?
Well, you might be asking the wrong guy in that regard, just because I am not a parent yet. I hope to be one day. But I can tell you that one of the we had several photos. The beauty of Shed Rally is we got to see everything last year. We kind of got to see who are the shed ralliers, like who are the people that are going to do this. And so the hashtag lets us see everything. And there were a bunch of photos uploaded last year of parents with little kids that wore you guys would have to tell me if they have an official name, but they're the harnesses that carry babies. You either wear them on your chest or you wear them on your back. And I can tell you from my perspective, to me, a shed hunt is a great way to just get out and walk and get out. And it's a time of year when you've kind of been caged up all winter. If you're like us in the Midwest, where, we've been through 3 or 4 months of pretty hard winter, it's a great time to get outside, walk, and hopefully it's going to be warm enough on Saturday during the shed rally to get out and take a walk. And when you're a kid, I don't know. When I was a kid, you could have given me a stick and a tree, and I could have just beat that tree with a stick. So it didn't take much to entertain me in the woods. I just needed something to hit with a stick. So now you've given me this big, basically Easter egg hunt, but for antlers. Well, you could keep me entertained all day if I'm a little kid by telling me to look for an antler. Just show me where to go. I'm ready. Now it's better than beating a tree with a stick. So I think kids, more so than anything else, can stay entertained when they're in the woods, maybe than anything. You put them in a room with a video game, it's going to get old. You put them in a room with TV, it's going to get old. They're going to be, trying to climb the walls. Take a kid to the woods, and you can literally entertain him all day. And then, when you're a guy like Dan Shoes, he's got a whole family out there going with grandkids and kids and friends, and I mean that's an adventure to a kid. You know what I'm saying? I mean it's something they don't get to do every day. So I personally think Shed Rally is the perfect gateway to people that are looking to ease someone into the outdoor lifestyle and not putting the pressure on them of pulling the trigger or being quiet or controlling your scent or any of those things that us diehard guys do every time we go hunting. You're saying, come on out, let's have a good time, let's walk around the woods, make all the noise you want. We're going to have a contest, we're going to have a barbecue, we're going to high five, and just keep it casual, keep it lighthearted. And the cool thing about Shed Rally is everybody else is doing it at the same time too. So
yeah, I love that. I think that's one of the absolute best things about shed hunting. And it's funny that you mentioned the whole, just standing in the woods and banging a stick on the tree, because I think that's still what Dallas does 90% of the time he's out there. So
that's why I'm not seeing any deer. I do it during
man.
too.
Yeah, that might explain why.
You could give me a stick and keep me busy all day when I was 6. So, I mean, think about now you're telling me to go look for antlers. Well, I'm going to be a hound dog,
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll add to that just one thing you might do, depending on the child's age. If they're really young, make sure you take a few antlers with you to ensure that they find something, so they go home happy, and it's rewarding, and it's a big deal, and you talk about it. Hey, do you know, my daughter, my grandchild, whoever it is, just found this antler, and they just beam. They can't wait till the next time they go out. Whereas not everyone's like Turb, Turb is literally, he's a determined guy, and he's going to go and he's going to do it. But some kids, if they get bored, they may not want to go the next time. I always take
I was going to say another thing I've noticed that Dan and the guys do is it's their teaching time for the kids as well. You may not want to go walk your best bedding area or the most incredible rub line that you have on your property in October once the bucks have started laying down all that sign, those scrapes and those rubs. Well, Shed Rally is the perfect time of year when you're not worried as much about intrusion and disturbing things, where you can go show a kid a scrape line or a rub line or explain to them a bedding area and a food source and all that stuff. So this is the time, if you're ever going to be invasive on your property, to teach and mentor those kids.
Yeah.
So, that's good stuff, Turb. I said Turb. Michael, I'm sorry. Somebody might think I'm saying what you said before, but I was gonna mention this to you. I've had 2 shed dogs. One of them was hit by an automobile. The other one was poisoned. I don't think they purposely poisoned him, but maybe they were poisoning coons or something. Anyway, he died. But I remember when he was just a pup, during the training, you could not hide a shed from them. I mean, it just didn't matter where you put it, but they're a lot like a little kid the first time you take them out. Like the first time that I took, the dog's name was White Oak, and he was just 1 year old, and I took him out for the first time. He was more interested in eating coon droppings and chasing butterflies. He was so excited to be out in the real world, And so I took a few antlers and rewarded him just like I did during training, and he was all fired up about it. And then the next time I took him out, the next time I took him out was the next season. He was 2 years old, and he was really, really good. I mean, he could find it. You couldn't hide an antler from him. There's just, if it was downwind of him, he could find it. But at the same time, there's all kinds of other scents going on, and he's been kind of sheltered, and he hasn't smelled all this stuff before. He hasn't smelled deer. He hasn't smelled coons. Hasn't smelled anything. So he's out chasing and playing, and I got kind of frustrated, and I said, White Oak, load up. And so I'm heading towards the truck, and I'm a little bit aggravated, and a little frustrated, and I'm walking towards the truck, and all of a sudden it roars me in the calf muscle, and I look down, and White Oak shoved an antler into my calf that he picked up, just grabbed it while we were heading back to the truck. So I patted him, rewarded him. I always gave him something to eat, and his command was he'd play and everything, and it was hunt him up. When I say hunt him up, White Oak was business, and after that, I threatened to take him back home. He was just all business after that. It's just kind of cool. And I'll just touch on this really quick because I know we're winding it up. But if you have a shed dog, the important thing to do is be patient, because this is what I experienced with White Oak. The first year I had White Oak, I was better than White Oak. I could find more antlers than White Oak. The second year I had White Oak and I were about the same. The third year, when White Oak was 3 years old, now all of a sudden he understands. He's putting two and two together, and he understands this is what I want. This is what makes me happy. This is what gets him rewards. And his ability as far as finding antlers was so good. It's like I wasn't even on the face of the earth. He was so much better. He'd run downwind of a stubble cornfield, and with his nose up in the air. And if there was a drop shed that was, I don't know, maybe within 2 weeks old, he could smell the wax around the base of that shed from about 60 yards. He'd turn him around on a dime. He'd run across the stubble cornfield, pick it up, and run back to me. And that's amazing. But you got to be patient with him. So I thought I'd throw that in there.
Yeah, that's awesome. We for anyone listening today that didn't catch last week's episode, last week, episode 45, we had Jeremy Moore, who is a shed dog trainer, and so we talked all about that very topic and got lots of great information. So be sure to check that one out too. But I think this is a perfect place for us to wrap things up. This has been awesome, and I was already excited about shed hunting this weekend, but now I'm even more excited. So if anyone out there listening right now, if they want to learn more about Whitetail Properties or the Shed Rally, Michael, where would you recommend they go?
So I think kind of with the weekend upon us of Shed Rally, the best place you can find more information out about Whitetail Properties or Shed Rally would be on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. And you can look for us on Facebook at facebook.com/Whitetail Properties.
Perfect. We will make sure to include those links in the show notes for this episode. And I know I'm going to be out there hitting the woods here soon, and Dallas will be, and I hope both you, Michael and Dan, have some luck this weekend too. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, good luck to you guys as well, and thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, thanks.
Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you later.
See you guys. Bye-bye.
Wow, that was pretty awesome, don't you think, Dallas?
I agree. It did. That conversation definitely got me pumped up about this weekend, either fighting the snow and doing some shed hunting, or waiting 2 weeks and potentially finding some chewed antlers. But nonetheless, man, just getting outside and walking for sheds is fun.
Yeah, it's going to be, gosh, I really, really, really hope this snowstorm that we're supposed to have doesn't happen, because I'm chomping at the bit right now. So
Right.
I will definitely be posting updates on the Wired to Hunt Facebook page and Instagram and Twitter this weekend on Saturday for the Shed Rally. Hopefully I'll be out there looking for some bone, and I'm sure you will be too, Dan or Dallas, over at the Nine Finger Chronicles. And speaking of, I think you had an announcement you wanted to make about the Nine Finger Chronicles. Is that right?
Right. Well, March marks the 1 year anniversary of the Nine Finger Chronicles. So to kind of celebrate, to all the podcast listeners and to the followers of the Nine Finger Chronicles, we're going to be doing some gear giveaway. I know that you're going to be donating some hats, and I'm going to be talking with some other companies about donating some products to give away. So just make sure you go and visit the ninefingerchronicles.com for the latest blog. It's either going to be posted tomorrow, or it's going to be posted on Friday. And or actually, when this releases, it's going to be Thursday. So it's going to be Thursday or Friday of this week. And there's going to be instructions there on what you need to do in order to get entered into this giveaway. And just another reason for free gear, man.
Love it. Gotta love a little free gear. So I will make sure to post that in the show notes as well.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Well, I'd say that is going to do it for us today on the podcast. And for show notes from this episode with all the links from today's show, please visit wiredtohunt.com/episode 46. And while you're there, be sure to explore the new Wired to Hunt, which is looking much improved in my opinion. I hope you like it. Also, as we always ask, if you've enjoyed the show, please take a hot second to leave us a rating or review on iTunes. It means a lot to us. We'd also like to thank our partners whose support has helped keep Wired to Hunt chugging along. So big thank you to Sitka Gear, Trophy Ridge, Bear Archery, Redneck Blinds, Carbon Express Arrows, Huntsoft, Lacrosse Boots, Big & J Long Range Attractants, and the Whitetail Institute of North America. And finally, thank you all for joining us today. If you're heading out soon to go shed hunting, I wish you good luck. Stay safe, and don't forget the TP. And of course, stay wired to hunt.
I'm sure a lot of you guys remember the old ceremonial hunting tradition of eating the heart out of the first animal you kill. Meat from those organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. You can get those same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil. Find out more at heartandsoil.co. And remember, use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase. You ever get that feeling the walls closing in, the concrete jungle suffocating you? You crave some wide open spaces, the chance to connect with nature, maybe in a spot all your own. Well, head over to land.com. They've got ranches, forests, mountains, streams, you name it. Search by acreage. You can search by location. You can search by the kind of hunting and fishing you're dreaming of. Land.com. It is where the adventure begins.